Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me, first of all, my name is Ismail Shair. I work for my government in Kenya as a strategic partnership, advising the president, and also I'm attached to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'll explain why I'm talking about water, because growing up as a child, I told this story before, that I used to walk 3 miles from my village with my mom to the river. She'll give me a shower, wash my clothes, while I'm playing around at the bank of the river, and then we'll go back home. You will think that I'll sweat. So Monday through Friday, that was the first and the last shower that I will have. And when you see me in suit right now, just so you know that most of us went through something in life that has changed your life, and that is why I'm really passionate about this subject. So, why scale? Speaking from the African perspective, which the why scale is going to address today, we have scarcity challenges globally, but Africa, for very much, is actually severe. It's also exacerbated by climate change, population growth, gap in institutional knowledge, and, if you ask me, data and governance. Someone once asked me, what could you do in the water sector? I said, governance. And they were like, okay, is that the issue? I said, governance for the second time. And they said, what else? I said, governance. And they said, 4th time governance. And then I said, money. We usually run to this money issue if we could only address the governance issue. Who is doing what? Even if you drop $100 where there's governance, you will see the impact. We don't make decisions based on evidence, based on facts, based on science. So, ladies and gentlemen, from African Union perspective, their Vision 2063, they mentioned that for them to align with that SDG, there are a couple of issues that they mentioned. There's data limitation, for example, what we just discussed. Weak institutional framework and fragmented implementation plan in our activities. So, the solution for many of us, and I believe the colleagues who are going to be here after me will address it, why scale, is it's globally recognized methodology for quantifying issues to deal with water access, water use, and reliability and availability. So the panelists after me will discuss the role of WISE data play in advancing water security in Africa. WISE scale was enabled having Africans in mind, and we really took our part and share in coming up with this process. So thank you to Prof. And your team for assisting us, giving us that chance, because it speaks to our issues that we're currently trying to address. So the team will brief this audience on wide-scale global validation, the brevity, rapid uptake of the methodology, and then findings from the wide-scale implementation in at least 20 African countries. You'll also hear from stakeholders. Personally, I represent both Government of Kenya and also African Union, the national government's representatives, and NGOs who have actually contributed and used the wide scale, and they can give you firsthand how that has actually contributed to their making policy decisions, resource allocation, which is quite important. Nowadays, nobody will tell you that I actually use this to find, or to allocate funds for an entity. So with that, we'll also share materials that are available here on the subject, and we'll be more than happy to actually answer your questions. So for me, it's an honor to stand up in front of you and introduce this new baby called WISE Scale. Ladies and gentlemen, I will allow me to invite Professor Sarah Young. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you, Dr. Chaillet, and thanks to all of you for spending your Sunday afternoon in a dark room. We will try to make it as interesting and pleasant for you as possible. Now, as the person who had the clicker last, yes, I should know where it is, and I do. So just a little overview of what we'll be cooking today. So I'll start with an overview of the WISE scales. As the mother of the scales, I'll describe the baby. And then we'll go from there to see how that baby is growing up in the world. And we'll hear from 4 different case studies throughout the continent. We'll move then to getting our hands a little bit wet. We have some WISE scales exercises for you. And then we'll conclude with a vision for that which can and should lie ahead for us in the next couple of years and out to the next decade. So you've heard about the Water and Security Experiences scales, WISE scales for short. They are a set of 12 items that are universal. They work everywhere we have tried everywhere we have tried them. And they ask about different problems with water. And they take about 3 minutes to ask. The backstory here is that I was interested in food security. My PhD is in nutrition. And when I said, there seem to be problems with water, I thought, let me measure water alongside food. So I started to learn about the concepts of water security. And what I learned is that water security is a term that can be used to cover many manner of sins. Sometimes it's used to refer to water availability. Is there water somewhere? Sometimes it's about access. So can you get to it? Can you afford it? Are you allowed to walk to it? The third concept that water security can refer to is acceptability and use. So like, you might want to water your garden with it, but you wouldn't want to brush your teeth with that kind of water. And then fourth, there's the concept of reliability or stability across time. So water security occurs when those 4 domains are met, but oftentimes we're only measuring 1 or 2 of them. So, and I was looking for a holistic measure that covers access, use, reliability. And I will spare you the enormous amount of work and detail on the statistics and the blood and the sweat and the tears and the gray hair that went into developing these scales. They look simple now, but there's a lot under the proverbial hood. All of that is open access, and you can read about it at wisescales.org. I'm happy to say that this work seems not to have been for naught, so the WISE scales have been widely implemented. More than 100 organizations have used them. By the end of this year, we'll have data, nationally representative data, I would add, for more than 80 countries. I was just on a phone call with people in Brazil, and the Brazilian government is ramping this up to implement nationally in their national monitoring. So there's a lot of big organizations like World Bank and UNICEF who have used it. There are a lot of really teeny tiny community organizations that have used it, and country level everywhere in between. And I've sort of been thinking about why the uptake has been what it has been. I mean, I'm impatient. I think it should be far more broadly rolled out. But in just this few short years since it was published, I mean, the H-WISE, the household version, was published in 2019. The individual version was published in 2021. I think we've had this uptake because it works across levels. So we can see who to target, who is in need, and we can use this to understand the impact of investments. So an example of this is the World Bank using H-WISE in Karnataka before a very large investment in water infrastructure, and now we have data for after. Charity Water is another example, and you'll hear straight from Charity Water's mouth later that this is now a key performance indicator for the NGO because you can really see what the impact is. Another reason for the uptake is because we can look at multi-sectoral consequences with it. So I overuse the term gateway drug in this context, but it's one thing, and it's easy enough to convince water people to measure water stuff. But it's another thing when you can connect water to physical health, to food security and nutrition, to mental health, to economic prosperity. And no, I will not go through all of the data that links water insecurity to all of those outcomes, but we do have it, and I'd be happy to tell you about it. Another reason that I think it's so useful is that because it's sort of gettable, it's understandable, such that it can inform decisions like investment, in advocacy, and in policymaking. And there are two really great stories that we have for this, and you can ask me about them in the Q&A if there's time. One of these stories comes from a high-income country setting in Australia, where after complaining for a long time about the water situation, and those complaints falling on deaf ears, once a community measured experiences with water, suddenly it was on the ABC, Australia Broadcasting Corporation's 7:30 news show, and suddenly the ministers were then there like, we're here to fix. There's another story from Mexico that didn't pop up, but also there's real-world implications. And so I have here these impact reports that are meant for people who don't particularly care about water, but do care about gender or advocacy or climate change or monitoring and evaluation, where in each of these, there's this one page. So it's easy to bring water with the WISE skills into other people's disciplines. I'm going to conclude by giving you 4 key features of the WISE skills, because a question is often asked, like, and rightly so, do we really need another water indicator? Who wants to do more work when you could do less work? So these are the 4 key features. The first is that it's very precise. It helps us to reveal who's left behind. And so as an example, so these are data, this is an Africa-centered session. These are even an out-of-date map of where we have data in Africa. If the country is entirely shaded, that means we have or will soon have nationally representative data. If there are spots, that means it's site-specific research. And what happened in what you're looking at in this very small chart is that food insecurity and water insecurity were measured at the same time. So in this very same person. And we could control for all the other things that we know that shape food insecurity. So age, gender, education, income. And what you can see in very small print is that people who are water insecure, this is the likelihood of being food insecure if you're water insecure. What you can see is that the likelihood of being food insecure is 2 to 3 times as great if you are already water insecure than if you're not. And this is really opening the eyes of the nutrition and food sector to say, like, we should be considering these together. And I'm telling you this because I'm saying the WISE scales helps to reveal who's being left behind. Because then we can pinpoint, is it women in rural Afghanistan, for example? That's what we saw with these data. We can see where the problems exactly are. So this is interesting because I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, a couple slides are missing, but I know this stuff, so I'll just talk you through it. The second is that the WISE scales are holistic. So when we are measuring, and with typical indicators, we're measuring drinking water itself. But if you go back to see these 12 questions, I'll spare you the 12 questions, but I can tell you what they are, that they cover not just drinking water, but they cover water for cooking. They cover hygiene aspects, so water for bathing and washing hands. And they also cover psychological dimensions of water, including worry and anger and shame about water situations. So the third key feature of the WISE scales is that they link to other sectors. So that food insecurity example is one. But if you, and I won't, but I could talk to you at length about how we're seeing how water insecurity is connecting to HIV outcomes, how water insecurity is connecting to duration of exclusive breastfeeding. I mean, it's not hard to see how water touches all of these things, and we're now starting to measure those so we can quantify those relationships. And then finally, we can use the WISE data to permit global comparisons. So the WISE scales have a property that's called non-invariant. And I am not good enough at statistics to figure that out, but that's why God made postdocs. And we have a number of really, really smart people working on doing the analyses of these data to show that we really can make comparisons between any country or any setting that are quite compelling. So with that, I am going to pass. There's some interesting slide things that have happened. I'm not sure they're shuffled. And really, the big sadness here is that I'm about to introduce Rick Johnston, but I have this amazing family of picture of him and my family in the wilds of Switzerland on a water adventure that our 15-year-old was super pissy about. and Rick is smiling and Stella is like, huh. But all this is to say is that Rick knows a lot about water and gender, both from a technical point of view, but also from a social point of view. So I think that slide with, you can just go back to that. So please let us appreciate Rick Johnston.
Hi, Sarah, and I can confirm that Sarah's family really enjoy the water. We had a great water experience in France, so that was really nice. But Sarah asked me to talk to you today about especially the gender applications of the WISE tools. And a few years ago, the JMP, the WHO UNICEF JMP, I lead the WHO half of it, we were working with Emory University to come up with a list of priority gender-specific indicators for monitoring WASH. And we reviewed what people were proposing, what was being used that had links with gender. A lot of the data that we routinely use is collected at the household level, or, oh yeah, there we go. The household level, or maybe at the national level or the provincial level. So it's really difficult to dig into intra-household variability. Like, how do different members of the household, of different sexes, disability, age, how do they experience water differently? So one reason that we were very happy to see the development of the WISE scales, and in fact, the first of 15 gender-specific indicators that we recommend is the individual WISE 4-item scale. And actually, the second indicator that we recommend, if you don't have time for even four goes quick, but if you don't have time for one, the item about worry. In the last 4 weeks, have you worried about not having enough water to meet all of your needs? That is strongly gender relevant. So we were also very happy then to see that Sarah and her team collected data separately from men and women, applying this same 12-point scale to see how they experience insecurity differently. And they published a paper in The Lancet in 2023. She didn't even put her Lancet paper on the list of papers, publications that she had before. So, but the Lancet paper showed the difference in insecurity scores by sex. So we reworked that for our report last year, which had a special focus on gender, or 2023, our report. And what was interesting is to see that different countries show different results. So in some countries, women report more insecurity than men. You can see Algeria here, Senegal, Cameroon, a big difference where more women are reporting insecurity. But there are also countries where it's men who report more insecurity. Ethiopia, Tanzania, Ghana. So it's interesting to make a comparison from one country to another. When you merge them all together and look at regional or global analyses, they tend to cancel each other out. So you see kind of even levels of insecurity at larger scales. So I think one of the really powerful applications of WISE scales is to look at the national or the subnational level and see what kind of differences are there. Are there urban-rural differences? What about different provinces, different districts? Who are experiencing more or less insecurity, and how does gender interact with that? Or potentially disability or other individual aspects of inequality. So I do see a lot of application for the WISE scales for that kind of work. Also, I think at a program level or a project level or an intervention level. If you think you have a great WASH intervention that's going to decrease insecurity and it's going to decrease gender gaps, well, put it to the test. Do a baseline survey, do your intervention, and come back and see if you had the impact that you thought you would have. Because honestly, oftentimes we're a little bit sloppy. We've got a great intervention, we're going to do it, everything's good. But no, we need to get serious about that. You need to measure things in order to manage them. And I think the WISE scales are a great new tool to measure and hopefully manage insecurity with a gender lens to it. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for the lovely picture, too.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, so that you now have that's the appetizer. That was the amuse-bouche. We are ready to move on to the entree, which is really the substantive reports of experiences with WISE in Africa. So our first speaker will be joining us online because of visa issues. I have to say, I don't want to do anything except to say that politics are really tough these days, and my heart goes out to all of the struggles with at the international level on many levels, and the visa problem is one of the small ones. But we miss Simon, we miss you, and we're very happy that you're able to join us online. Simon Thuo, please.
Yep. Shall you project?
We hear you, Simon.
Okay.
Hey, we see you, Simon.
Okay. Are you going to project? Okay, yes, thank you. So I'm going to give a case study of the use of WISE in Kajiado, Turkana, and Marsabit. Yes, so can we go to the next? So in Kajiado, Turkana, and Marsabit, water insecurity is daily reality impacting health, economy, and social cohesion. And we also with the data because the traditional monitoring system, e.g. the number of boreholes, facilities constructed, and so on, fail to capture the human experience and leads to ineffective interventions. And the other thing is that we can't solve problems that we do not fully understand. Next, please. The other challenge for these counties, they are Kenya's largest, maybe up to 50% of Kenya's territory. They are very large, inaccessible, and have very harsh conditions, hardly any passable roads. And this makes traditional surveys slow, expensive, and quite risky, honestly. And the thing is that the data is often outdated by the time it is analyzed because it's normally done maybe once a year or once every 2 years. It fails to capture seasonal and sudden changes on the ground. And counting infrastructure, such as the number of boreholes or number of water facilities put up and so on, they overlook critical questions like, is the water safe? Is it accessible to all? Is it reliable? Does it cause social tension between the communities? And this is particularly critical. Shaiye mentioned about climate change causing very unexpected impacts on the ground, like Lake Turkana has vastly increased in size and also a couple of other lakes on the Rift Valley. But this has come at a tremendous negative cost to the water security because you find that salty water has now inundated most of the freshwater systems that we have in those areas. Next, please. So like for Marsabit, we found that there was a huge psychological impact, the mental health burden of water insecurity, with 86% of residents reporting constant worry, as the first speaker has mentioned. More than 80% experiencing anger and almost 80% also feeling shame related to their water situation. They do not have water for their hygiene or for their visitors or to use in the ways that they would look. And we found that there was a very high food insecurity link. In Marsabit and Turkana, we also undertook a food insecurity survey, at the same time, and we found that there was very there was a very high correlation with almost 96% of households facing food insecurity related to severe lack of water. And then pervasive infrastructure failure. A critical finding was that 30 to 50% of water infrastructure projects are non-functional. It's largely attributed to long-term maintenance and lack of community oversight. Again, about women, about gender, women bear the primary responsibility for water collection, and there's erosion of social cohesion because of frequent water interruptions, affecting almost 2/3 of the residents. Next, please. And yes, I think, maybe we can just go to the next one because of time. Yes, and in Turkana, we also find extreme hardship. The level of water insecurity in Turkana was found to be more severe than conflict zones like South Sudan and even Yemen. And the time burden on women in Kalokol, women spend up to 10 hours daily collecting water, which is the longest duration recorded in global water insecurity studies. And these have critical health impacts. 77% of households reported being unable to wash their hands, and 80% could not bathe as needed due to water shortages. And this also has economic impacts. There is distress with 54% of households regularly borrowing money and 61% buying food on credit in order to cope. And a significant challenge was noted in merging collected water and food security data set for roughly 1/3 of the surveyed households, which hindered a complete analysis. So we hope to go back and redo the work and see what is actually changing on the ground. Next, please. And the IWISE and HWISE data revealed a humanitarian crisis hidden in plain sight, unprecedented hardships, burden to women, and a ripple effect, as mentioned, on health and household economies and income. Next, please. So what we find is that the HWISE enables us to use human-centered data to break the cycle of failed projects, because at the moment, investments are based on incomplete engineering data. Like a borehole is drilled, it eventually breaks almost 30% or 40% of the time, and the community is back to square one. So if we are able to use the WISE data, we design for people based on usage patterns, social dynamics, and affordability, and engaging the community to build ownerships and the data collection, which fosters a sense of ownership. And it is also very useful for early warning. Regular low-cost IWISE survey can act as an early warning system for failing infrastructure or rising social tension, allowing for proactive maintenance and conflict resolution. There is quite a lot of conflict associated with lack of water access between the adjacent communities in these areas. Next, please. Yes, so at the moment, the resources are thinly spread or directed to politically expedient projects, missing most of the vulnerable households. And after utilizing in planning and implementation, these IWISE scores allow us to identify and target the most water insecure households and communities with much better accuracy, and also provides better and softer investment in governance, which Shai again mentioned is very, very critical, social cohesion, and also provides for simplified water management training, which is critical for the success of the hard infrastructure. And it measures what matters, clear human-centered metrics of success, demonstrating return on investment in terms of well-being, not just in terms of physical infrastructure. And the last one, please. And we are able to get data that counts to achieve sustainable water services in some of the world's toughest environments, to embrace experiential metrics, moving beyond counting infrastructure and measuring what really matters, and investment in local data ecosystems that are simple and accessible to the decision makers at all levels, from the local community to the county to the national level, and also using this nuanced understanding to make smarter, more sustainable, but also more humane investments. Thank you very much.
Let's appreciate Simon. Thank you, Simon.
Yes, I'm also available for any questions, so I'll just be on standby. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. So we will take Q&A after the 4 case studies and before we move to the practice session. So Simon, please don't run too far away.
Okay.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Richard Kajambo. He's with the Ministry of Finance in Malawi, and he has spearheaded some incredible efforts to implement the WISE scales in the context of a national survey of Malawi. Dr. Kajambo, please, we welcome you to the proverbial stage.
Good afternoon. It's great to join you today and share a bit relating to WISE scales in Malawi, our experiences, but also provide some lessons learned, implementation modalities relating to the same. So I work with Ministry of Finance. I'm responsible for development policy that focuses on water and all other sectors within Malawi. When we heard about WISE scale, we realized there is value for money. The analysis appeared to be easy to conduct, but we also realized that most of the issues which were being shared had a bearing in Malawi. So I will share these experiences. Next slide, please. So basically, can you do to the next so that I have got the whole slide covered? Yeah, if you cover everything else that makes sense. So Malawi has got about 21 million people, and water is a challenge to about 30% of the population. We realized water is really critical for food security because Malawi, the backbone is agriculture. We're expanding irrigation infrastructure, access to improved water sources, sanitation is a government priority. It's also important for health and the well-being of the general population. Water and sanitation issues contribute to a heavy disease burden. It's costing Malawi about 57 million annually in health expenditure and productivity loss. High infrastructure repair costs, limited water storage, and gaps in knowledge of the sustainability of groundwater resources. They exacerbate the situation, and climate change also worsens the situation. Next slide, please. Basically, I wanted to understand the human experiences that would really be generated out of the use of the WISE scales. For example, when we are collecting the data, we realize that even in urban areas where there is a tap, you see a picture to the right hand of the presentation, the tap might be locked and nobody is able to access the water because the landlord is basically trying to reduce cost, water-related cost, and all those within the compound are not able to access the water. So despite availability of potable water, but accessibility becomes an issue. And we have got limited data in terms of water security. Most national surveys are done every 5 years. And the MVAC, Malawi Vulnerability Assessment Committee, is able to collect data every year. So wanted to use an opportunity to collect data using MVAC modalities and include the WISE scale module, just to institutionalize it. So basically we had a pilot study, and then later on we conducted a national survey. Next slide, please. So we had a much stakeholder engagement and the collaboration for implementation of the WISE scales. These are the institutions which were involved: UNICEF, WFP. We consulted Northwestern University. Professor Sarah provided some of the technical support, but also Ministry of Water and Sanitation, the policy holder in Malawi, supported this assessment. Yeah, slide. Next slide, please. So during the pilot, we had 2 communities, one in the urban area and one in the rural area. We had about 271 households. We conducted this from 17th to 19th of April. We had to translate the questionnaire into local language, but also English, just to ease collection of the data. Next slide. Things went well. We managed to validate the WISE scales, and the Crowback Arthur showed a very reliable output, which was covaried as expected with most of the household demographic indicators, like improved water sources, time taken to draw water, household size, sanitation, and also the results resonated with the participants' experiences. It was easy for enumerators to administer the data using tablets. And ourselves as economists and statisticians from National Statistical Office, we found it easy to compute the indicators, analyze. We were able also to relate to social demographic factors, water and sanitation, and food security indicators. This is just a picture of one of the enumerators collecting data in one of the urban areas. Next is. This is the result of the pilot study. The result showed that 37% had the marginal water insecurity status. 4% had the high water insecurity status. When we disaggregated the results, the results showed serious water challenges in one of the urban settlements. We collected the data. Next slide, please. We also managed to roll out a national data collection. We collected about 6,033 households. We collected data from those households. But the survey also focused on collecting data on vulnerability, household hunger scale, diet diversity score, food consumption score, asset ownership, crop productivity, but also well-being related indicators. The next slide. Just to share some of the preliminary results. Basically, 76.8% of the household had the marginal food insecurity. 6.6% had moderate water insecurity status. Even in the WISE scales, the water insecurity scale seems to go very strongly with the household demographics, just like in the pilot. The income, gender of the household head, household size, household asset ownership. We also related that to WASH indicators. Those that had unimproved water sources, these had the high levels of water insecurity, and that had the severe household hunger experiences. They also had the very high water insecurity status. Those that were not able to cope, showing by the coping strategy index, these had also high levels of water insecurity. So this correlates well with most of the studies. The results are showing that the challenges that we have in terms of food insecurity, the underlying factor relates to poverty status of the households. Next slide, please. An analysis of gender showed that most of the female-headed households in Malawi had relatively a better water insecurity status compared to the males. Basically, it's because most of the water is collected by adult females. And the adult females are able to access the water easily, but their female counterparts had challenges. And most of the water sources are above 30 minutes walk away from the households. Next slide, please. We also realized that an analysis based on where we have water insecurity status, Malawi has got 3 administrative regions. The results showed that there is low water insecurity, about 17.7 in the central region, higher than the south and northern regions, but also the prevalence of water insecurity, the highest water insecurity is experienced mostly in the southern region. So in terms of policy programming and the prioritization, this enabled the government of Malawi to realize where to put more resources in terms of intervening in water insecurity situations. Next slide. We realized that WISE scales are appealing because they are short, simple to use, analysis is straightforward. It doesn't require a consultant to do the analysis. Most of the times, in in Malawi, we hire consultants to do analysis, but we were able to do it without engaging any. Informative for WASH, data is already shaping water policy in Malawi. We are scaling up WASH interventions among development partners and government WASH programming. We realized the multi-sectoral value of this analysis because the data is useful for food and nutrition programming. From the point of view of Ministry of Finance, we realize there is value of money analysis because the data that we are using from Malawi vulnerability assessment, a module of WISE that took about 3 to 5 minutes, we were able to use the same resources for collecting that data, and also add we are able to add WISE scales. And with partners in Malawi, we are now developing a fully fledged report so that we can share to most stakeholders relating to the same. Implementation is advisable in multi-cluster surveys, demographic household surveys, and we should be able to share more once the final report is out by August. Thank you so much. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Kajambo. It's my pleasure now to bring, we flip-flopped a few times. Is it Christina or Scott? I think it's me. Okay, Dr. Christina Barstow, up to the stage, please. Please. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for sharing your slides with us.
All right, so from Kenya to Malawi and now to Madagascar, talking about how we've been able to utilize the HWISE, the household level WISE indicators at Helvetas in Madagascar. So just really quickly, I'm actually not going to talk about the intricacies of our program in Madagascar today, but just to give you kind of a quick idea of what we're doing in Madagascar, this is a private sector strengthening program. There's actually a Madagascar law that delegates that water services will go to private operators. So we kind of work within that system, and infrastructure is co-funded by Helvetas and private operators, and then co-owned by private operators and local authorities. In addition, so in most of the regions we're doing in most of the regions we're doing community level taps, and then in one of the regions in Diana, we're doing some household private connections, and that'll become somehow relevant soon. So we did a baseline survey, and I'm really gonna focus on the HWISE baseline survey today. We just ran an end line, and I don't have those kind of results for you yet, but I think the baseline results are interesting enough to kind of look at how we're seeing household water insecurity. So in Madagascar, we did surveys in two regions. One is called Menembe and one is called Diana. And for those of you that work in Madagascar, you know that these regions are extremely different. And it's really worth kind of pointing this out because you're gonna see how that's relevant in a moment. But you can start to see it with just the primary water sources here. So in Diana, it is a very water-rich, region. You can see that we have about 67% of households there using unprotected dug wells, and those are basically like in their backyard. They have so much water, it is in abundance, that they can easily access water. You can also see it in the collection time here, which is about 12 minutes, which is less than half in Menembe, this western region, where it's much drier. And so in Menembe, you have a lot of households that have to travel further to get their water. You see kind of a little bit more diversity in the types of water sources, but it's a little bit harder for them to access water abundantly. Okay, so diving right into water insecurity. So these are the 12 metrics that Sarah talked about earlier, and you can start to see kind of where some of these security metrics are more interesting. So able to get as much water as you want on demand is where we kind of see the highest. And overall, this is interesting. We were able to kind of look at this and say, what is this story of water insecurity telling us? But we were about like 35% of households being water insecure. But this is where it kind of gets really interesting. So we started to, again, we broke it down by region. And what you can see is a pretty big difference between what's happening in Diana versus Menembe. Again, to remind you, Menembe is that dry region, whereas Diana is that super water abundant region. And so in Menembe, where it's drier, we have much higher water insecurity there. Where in Diana, people can get water in their backyard, it's much more water secure there. So taking that one step further, we compared water insecurity metrics to the JMP indicators. And with what Sarah was talking about earlier, which is like, we don't want to just add on indicators for the sake of adding on indicators, but we were really interested in what are the different stories that these two indicators are telling us. And so when we first kind of look at overall between both regions, we see about 50% of households falling into that basic category. And then we see about more or less 60% in the kind of low water insecurity category. So overall, those are actually kind of similar, and when we look at them against each other. But then when we start to look at them in these different regions, we really start to see differences emerge. So Diana, again, very wet region. What we see here is people are using a lot of unimproved sources here. Most of them are unimproved dug wells in their backyard. Those are not safe sources. They're unimproved sources. But people in Diana feel much more water secure. They have water. It is abundant. They can walk out of their back door and get it. And that is the story kind of that we see here, which is opposite in Menembe, much drier region, but they have to go further to get water, but they have more of these improved sources. So they're more basic. But people don't have water all the time when they want it. They don't have time. They don't have water to wash their clothes and these other metrics that HWISE is really looking at. And so it was really interesting for us to kind of start from this point of different regions. This is Madagascar. This is just one island, and we're seeing these very drastically different things happen in two other regions. And we are also really starting to see, which I'm not going to show you, just a teaser of what our end line data is, how this can really impact our end line. Because in Diana, in those regions where we do have more water abundance, we're doing more household level water connections. And now people have to pay for their water to a certain extent. And also, it may not be as easy to get all the time as just out of the dug well in their backyard. So we're kind of now starting to see the shift where JMP indicators might go up, but water security starts to go down. So anyways, this is just the story I think that's super interesting, and why we're looking at this at Helvetas is these HWISE indicators give this a whole nother picture, a whole nother story of what's going on beyond JMP indicators, which is really important and tells us another really important story. But I think combining these together is what we're really interested in seeing right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Barstow. That's great. You really are teasing us about those end-line Madagascar data. I was hoping to see a little bit of that today. So we're looking forward to that. I will also flag for the people in the audience that we have had one paper published on the value of WISE stuff for implementation, and that's in PLOS Water. It's a collaboration with Charity Water, Helvetas, Oxfam. There are some professors on it too, but it was in PLOS Water, and it's like a handy way of showing how these data can be used for evaluation and implementation. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Scott Miller, who will be our fourth case study, or present our fourth case study, and then we'll be looking to the crowd for questions and answers. So save all your hard questions for these people. Scott.
Okay, hey everyone. I Hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks to the folks joining us online. My name is Scott Miller, and I lead monitoring, evaluation, and learning at a nonprofit organization called Charity Water. Charity Water is a funder of global WASH programs, but unique to most funders, all of the resources that we are able to grant out to implementing partners around the world depends on direct fundraising. So each and every year, dating back to 2006 when the organization started, Charity Water works to meet people where they are, capture their attention, and inspire them to contribute to a world where everyone has access to safe, reliable drinking water. And our approach to this is quite wide-ranging. We really do consider our target audience of donors to be everyone from a 10-year-old with a lemonade stand that wants to donate the proceeds to charity to individuals, foundations, corporations that are interested in making more substantial investments in clean water around the world. And in order to do this, we know that we need to constantly be innovating. We need to constantly be showing people new information, new ways of thinking about the water crisis, and inspiring them to make a change, whether small or large, around the world. And every year, we package up the resources that we're able to raise from donors, and we grant them out to a network of expert implementing partners around the world. I think many of our partners are here in the room today, including Dr. Barstow and Helvetas. And these partners are true experts at what they do. These folks are hydrologists, engineers, data scientists that have a proven track record of understanding the local infrastructure, the local culture and context, being able to collaborate with national and local governments to build sustainable drinking water services in some of the most remote, hard-to-reach places on the planet. And we have increasingly, over the last 10 years, been working with those organizations to collect data on the ground, to do household surveys, both before and after projects are implemented, to understand what's working well, to be able to move away from approaches that aren't as effective, and make sure that we are maximizing the impact of our donors' dollars. And so our work today spans 22 countries where we partner with 56 different implementing organizations. This work is primarily in sub-Saharan Africa as well as in Southern Asia. And here is where I was actually going to make the case for collecting data in a program context, but I think Rick Johnston did the best case that you could for that. So especially for those of you who are able to watch the recording of this later, this is where you should just kind of go back to the exact timestamp and just listen to his quote over again. But this is where we have been working with our partners to build a robust monitoring and evaluation framework that relies on standardized metrics on themes from water access to water quality, sanitation, hygiene, and wash management, relying on essentially all of the indicators that those of you in this room know well, many of them taken directly from the JMP. And dating back to 2016 when we started this, we've completed nearly 150 quantitative program evaluations and collected more than 100,000 household surveys. And so this is really where the WISE scales enter the picture. This actually came to us through our partner Helvetas that had first interacted with Dr. Sarah Young and brought this to us and said, we would really love to be able to test this in our program areas. We're already working, we're already collecting data. Let's tack on these 12 questions and let's see what happens. And so over the last year and a half, we've been working with our partners to expand this data collection in every context that we're working in. We're just getting to the point where we're starting to get N-line data in the door now. So we only have this for a few countries in Africa so far, but we will, by the end of this year, have data across all 22 countries that we work in. And a couple of points that I want to make here is that WISE data is proving to be valuable for us in a number of different ways. I would say one, it's that we're seeing how this data is responsive to different contexts. So although we're still interested, we're digging in the way Dr. Barstow talked about to understand what is the WISE data telling us in each context? What local factors is it picking up on that our other data might miss? And so you can see here across different contexts, the baseline levels of water insecurity are quite different. And that's a fascinating thing for us to explore further compared to the nationally representative estimates. But this data is also proving to be responsive to intervention. So you can see both before and after interventions, not only is the overall prevalence of water insecurity falling, but across each of those 12 dimensions of the Y scales, we're also seeing meaningful reductions. And the difference in how far water insecurity falls across each of those dimensions is also playing into how we're thinking about the effectiveness of our work with our partners. But ultimately, this really does come down to us, to fundraising. We're not an implementing organization. We're not the ones taking those results and acting on the ground. We love doing that. We love supporting our partners in that work. But our job is to bring resources to the table. So this is where we've been experimenting with bringing this to our supporters, putting it in front of them in different ways, and doing what we always do, which is observing what happens, trying to figure out what our supporters are telling us, what resonates, and being able to pivot and adapt based on what we're learning there. And so over the last couple of months, we've been trying this in different ways. And although I don't want you to just take my word for it that this work is resonating with people outside of the WASH sector, the Y scales, in my experience, have been shown to be a really powerful motivational tool for folks at home that want to make a difference in the WASH sector. So this is all just from this last month. The paper that Dr. Young just mentioned was published in PLOS Water earlier this month, and we just packaged it up and sent it out in an email to our listserv to all of our supporters, said, we published this paper. You might find it interesting. Here's what the results showed, and here's what we plan on doing with it in the future. And within a couple hours, my fundraising colleagues started pinging me and saying, hey, we usually get responses to the emails we send out, but these are a little different. Here's someone reaching out and saying, not only is this amazing, thank you for sharing this, but how do I increase my donation amount? Here's another person that works with our major donor supporters, just a few minutes later saying, I also got a response to that email from someone who is a lapsed donor, someone who had given to us a few years ago, but stopped giving, who said, thank you so much for sharing this. This is amazing. I want to re-engage, and this time I'd like to give even more than I did last time. And to give you a sense of where we're going next with this, we've even gotten our founder and CEO, Scott Harrison, to be very enthusiastic about the Y scales in trying to figure out how we can continue to build on this messaging, to use HYs as an experiential tool to bring our donors closer to the work that they're supporting. So with all of that, thank you so much, and I look forward to taking your questions.
That is new news to me. I did not know that, but that is, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you, Charity Water. How exciting. So this is your moment. This is the Q&As. Ask me the easy ones. Ask everyone else behind me the hard ones. And I would like to say there's a question here down in front. If you could please wait till you have the microphone, just so that our beloved online folks can also hear your question. And if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, you hear me? Yeah. Jean Lapeg from Action Against Hunger. So we are working in the same areas in 59 countries. I had two questions. One is a technical one. With the example of Madagascar, you have the impression that you have got a better water security in the north, where, in fact, in terms of public health risk, it's higher. So the question is, when you rely on the 12 topics of the HYs, don't you risk to induce a wrong perception for politics or for donors who would like to fund rather MENABA than Diana? So that's the first question. The second one is a strategic question regarding the WAA indicators from UNICEF, the water insecurity analysis. Is it going to be compatible, or is HYs going to disappear inside the WAA, or is it the opposite? Thank you.
Cool. So great question about Madagascar. I think there's a couple of facets that we like to think about there. One, I would say we are definitely not advocating for one indicator over another indicator. I think they both tell us really important things. And so I would definitely not want to present the WISE data as, oh, we should use that over JMP data. I think they're both telling us different but very important things. In the same light, I would say, one, I think it's really important to recognize that there's something happening in this community where even though they perhaps don't have clean water, they still feel water secure because they have an abundance of water. So I think that as an implementer, that gives us the question of how are we thinking about water quantity and how are we thinking about water quality? And in that water quality sense, perhaps we also need to be doing more behavioral work on what does it mean to have clean water? Do you all, while you feel water secure, do you know that this water isn't bacteriologically safe to drink? So for us, it's really about combining those stories and really seeing what we can learn from each one of those, and also truly recognizing that like what's happening in Diana are people's experiences. They are saying, this is how we experience water. This is how we feel about our water source. We feel pretty abundant in what we have. And it also gave us a little bit of a warning that it was gonna be a little bit more difficult to roll out some improved sources there because they already feel that they have the water that they need generally.
Yeah, great questions. Maybe I could follow up a little bit about the question about water security versus water quality, because I think it's an important one. And as we get more data and more granular data, we'll see more that you can have security at the cost of quality at some points. If you have a private, unimproved dug well in your yard, security is good, quality is bad. So that's why I do think that looking at the higher levels of service in the global framework, safely managed, could be an interesting comparison with the insecurity scale here. So to be safely managed, the water supply should be accessible on premises. It should be available when needed. So there's a link there maybe between WISE and availability. And it should be free from contamination. Sorry, Sarah, but we are launching our new report on Thursday at 2 p.m. in room C3. And one of the analyses we make in it is looking at these three levels, these three metrics of safely managed, and how they vary by water source type. And we see that very often, especially in low and middle income countries, people who are using unimproved water sources have better water availability when needed than people who have improved sources. As for the WASH insecurity analysis that UNICEF and the WASH cluster are promoting, this is really an attempt to get very granular data, which includes the JMP indicators, but also includes other metrics like disease burden and resilience. So I wouldn't, again, see them as in competition. I think they're just trying to see how we can get very local scale information so that, especially in the context of an outbreak, cholera, a disaster, you can identify the most vulnerable populations. And for there, honestly, it doesn't matter if you're using the WISE scales or if you're using some other scales. The importance is to have data to inform your interventions and responses.
Thanks, Rick. There was another question there, and I'll just say it's nice that you can. It's very possible to fold in these experiential kinds of data with other assessments. So the multi-sectoral needs assessment survey that's done in mostly humanitarian settings, they're now using HY just this year, the HYS4, the 4-item, the short version, to identify a number of people in need. That's part of the algorithm now. Please, up top. Please introduce yourself too.
Is it on? Yeah, thank you. My name is Henk Holtslag from the Smart Center Group. I had a question for Mr. Miller. You mentioned you evaluated the treatment options also. Was that treatment at the point of source, so the pipe system, or was it treatment at the household level? And my second question is about household water treatment. You say your challenge is, or your activity is raising funds. So one of the options to have safe water is household water treatment, as you may agree. There is studies that indicate that for $4 per person, someone can have safe water, sustainable, safe drinking water with good quality water filters. So my question is, do you raise funds also for water treatment, household water treatment? And if not, is there an idea to start with that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Excellent questions. So on the first one about the interventions themselves, I'll say those look different in every context. So we as Charity Water are not choosing the interventions that our implementing partners are delivering. That is entirely up to our partners who work with local and national governments and try to understand the best solution for each community. And so depending on which data set we're looking at, some of those are all the way up to safely managed. Some of those are wells with hand pumps. Some of those are biosand filters in Cambodia, for instance. So we really are kind of looking at a wide range of interventions. And that's where I think this data in particular is useful for us because the JMP data, for instance, if that's where that's infrastructure specific, we kind of know what we're measuring. We know the infrastructure that's being built, so we know what to expect in terms of a change in the infrastructure data. What we are really interested in and seeing value in here is seeing across those different infrastructure types, how is water insecurity changing? And so your second point about household water treatment is an excellent one, and yes, that is absolutely a part of programs in some places. Again, that's a decision that's up to our partners and what works best in their context, but if I remember from visiting the Helvetas Nepal program with Dr. Barstow, that's part of the program there, are household level water filters. We also do quite a lot of filtration in places like Cambodia and Laos where that's needed. Yeah, great questions, thank you.
Thanks for the interesting presentation. George Wainaina from Yawak. I have a question. We have the insecurity scale. Are there thoughts for a counterpart security scale because the opposite is not always the same as? Yeah.
Are you asking if we are also thinking about measuring water security instead of insecurity? Yes. Yeah. Well, you kind of, I mean, it's a pretty pessimistic title, isn't it? But health goes wrong and economy goes wrong when people are water insecure. So if they're secure, we don't even want to measure them. So at this point, no, we are not developing a water secure score. But those who are scoring from 0 to 3 are considered, and it was almost correctly titled in Dr. Kajambo's slides, it's no to marginal. Yeah, so 0 to 3 on the score is no to marginal water insecurity, AKA water security, yep. Water secure. Thank you. There's also questions on this side of the room.
Okay, shall I start? Okay, so I'm Maruf Mazhar. I work for the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross. And actually, we're planning to implement WISE in one of our projects very soon. So I would like to hear what were the major challenges for the 4 case studies, and maybe what are the best lessons learned, so we can benefit from them. And if there's like a lessons learned log sheet that you can share, that would be great.
Yeah, so our intention was for everyone to get their hands wet with the WISE scales. That's not going to happen because of the Q&A robust questions. But what I will point to you here are the materials I brought for homework. So here is just the WISE worksheets with some links to the questions themselves, and these maybe we can hand out during the session. This, you're going to want to take one of these. This is the implementation handbook that answers all of the questions that we have come across in the last 5 or 6 years we've been doing this. So should I use the HWISE or the iWISE version? What's the recall period? How can I best analyze these data? And there's programs that have now been, thanks in fact to Dr. Miller, to like automate some of the data analysis. And these are now available in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese online. But I highly recommend you take one of these. This, a lot of mistakes were made, and now we know how to do better things in this. Thank you.
Can I add one thing, Sarah?
Please.
I would just say reach out to Sarah on the specific countries that you're working in, because a lot of folks have already worked there, and it's been really helpful for our context and other contexts for us to talk to folks that have implemented. There might be a translated survey already, and it can be a little challenging. You're asking like specifically about challenges because you are talking about like worry and shame and anger, and those things can be difficult to talk about in different contexts and be translated very differently. So definitely reach out in like specific countries because those tools may exist.
Yeah, and we're working on an interactive map. It's almost done so that we don't always have all of the data from the countries, but we can say like, oh, Dr. Miller worked there, so did Dr. Nelson, and at least those two can have a bilateral talk about how not to translate X question or Y question. Maybe just for which country will you be working in?
Yeah, the project is based in Lebanon, enemy conflict area right now.
Okay, Lebanon. We have translations from work we did in Beirut, so call me.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. So I'm from JICA. My name is Ryuji Ogata. So we are also considering to utilize the WISE scale for our project to measure the effectiveness of our project. So in that case, I think that we should conduct the WISE scale survey in the time of the baseline survey and endline survey. And in that time, the problem is that we should conduct the, we should decide the recall the period for 4 weeks or 1 year. This is my problem. So I'd like to know your experience about that, because even if we conduct the same period in the year, like January, we conduct the baseline survey, and 3 years later, we conduct the baseline survey in January. Even so, the season differs every year. That's why I'd like to know your experience about your survey, Dr. Barstu and Dr. Miller. How did you justify this problem?
Do you want to talk about this? I feel like you've examined the time.
I will give a brief version, but then I'm happy to defer. So there's no wrong recall period. The recall period depends on the purpose of the evaluation. So when we work with Gallup in the World Poll, we do a 1-year recall period because the purpose is comparison across countries. And so we want to catch all of the variation in precipitation and temperature. So it's easier when you have this long period of time, so you're not comparing one person's rainy season to one person's dry. So if you're doing global monitoring, the correct answer, I would say, is 1 year. However, if you're trying to understand the impact of a program, then you want a more precise measure. And if I would highly recommend 1 month or 4 weeks, and the phrasing can depend on the culture. And in that same month that the original survey was done. However, and Simon Thuo and I, who's online, encountered, we wanted to do a follow-up in Kajiado, but there was this unexpected torrential rains in the same month 1 year later. So we didn't do it in the same month because the ecological conditions were so different. Anyone want to add?
Yeah, I'll just confirm that one point on, especially for looking at pre-post, trying to understand the effectiveness of an intervention. I'm not sure what the timelines are for you, but this decision was pretty easy for us because our end-line data is often collected within 1 year of the implementation, right? So if a water source is implemented in January, and then we survey someone in March or April, and we ask them about 1 full year, we're going to be covering a period before the intervention started. So I think that's also a useful framework, is trying to make sure that what you're recalling on is really the period of using the new water source. Yeah.
We'll take one more question. I see lots of hands. I don't know where the microphone is.
I have it here.
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Susan Dundon. I'm with the Osprey Foundation in the U.S. I had a question for the colleague from Malawi, and I was curious about how they built the political leadership to do a national level survey, and also, were they surprised by the results? But mostly about the political leadership and the rationale for doing it at the national level.
Dr. Kajambo, are you here?
Definitely, Prof. I'm around. Can I go ahead? Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Basically, it was, first of all, we did the pilot with the key institutions, National Statistical Office, that is mandated to do all surveys in Malawi, and then the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, Ministry of Finance, and we had the colleagues from the technical read for Malawi Vulnerability Assessment. So basically, when we did pilot, we realized that the results we got were more informative compared to the indicators which we have been using in WASH. In fact, our colleagues from UNICEF and the WHO, together with the WFP, they were very much interested because previously they were more focusing on the vulnerability, food insecurity. So with the WISE, it indicated that we had an opportunity because mostly the Malawi Vulnerability Assessment conducts national surveys in July. So we had done the pilot in April, and then we thought it would be easier to resources by just adding the module of WISE into the existing survey. So it did not require extra cost, no extra amount of money that could have made it expensive. So we used the existing national survey to add a module that added time for collecting data by almost 5 minutes for every questionnaire, but using the same results. It's because we had realized that the pilot results had more informative information relating to even experiences of challenges in water in the urban areas, which previously we thought challenges are only in the rural areas and ignored the urban areas. So it had added value. So we also instituted them at stakeholder engagement for collaboration. So we took the committee that is responsible for WASH Technical Committee, Food Security, that is Malawi Vulnerability Technical Committee. We had a representation from both, and then created a platform that supported the collection of data, but also the analysis and also the report writing. So we are working on the report, analyzing the data. I gave you preliminary results, but it's because of the synergies we have that made it easier to do a national survey without looking for extra cost or extra resources in terms of the finances. So for us as Minister of Finance, we thought that was an added value to the whole analysis. And because it's easy to administer, easy to analyze, it really made the whole difference. But stakeholder engagement is very key. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kajambo. So you'll leave here with your hands dry, if we could have the slides. But I will point out to you the many WISE resources that there are. Next slide, please. So we have, even up here, a few of them. So we have guidance on administration, and that's here. These are heavy in my suitcase. Please don't make me take them home. We have the scale items translated into more than 50 and soon more than 90 languages. Those are available on the WISE Scales website, but it's this stack of papers, please don't make me take them home, where you have the 12 questions, both for the 12 version and then the shorter 4 version one. These are here. This is what your homework was going to be. We also have this impact report, which is really helpful in translating the words out. So this is where those like 10 little briefs are. So you don't care about water, but you care about gender. These are useful. We have the coding that Scott has done for analysis. The forms are, the items are in REDCap and some other MWater. We have data. So soon enough, we'll have even more nationally representative data. And I don't think of those as a resource that I can use to write peer-reviewed papers that 12 people read. These are meant to be out in the world to do good. So if you want to know what nationally representative data look like for Kenya, we have that, and we want to share that with you. We also have momentum, and we have networks. So a couple of years ago, we birthed a Latin America and Caribbean network that has just been really robust. I mean, our WhatsApp group, like 4 papers out this week, and Brazil, they're using the scale, so exciting. In September, we will be launching it's called FoodWise Asia Pacific. Greg Leslie, Dr. Leslie and I are the parents of that network, so talk to him for any questions you have about it. And there's really just a big communities rising up around this. Ooh, one more. These are the networks. In case you're interested in joining, you can see, if you could advance the slide, please. So you can join the Latin America and Caribbean network. We'd love to have you. You don't have to work in Latin America and the Caribbean to join. And then the FoodWise network will soon enough be open for joining as well. And it's no cost to join, just a lot of information. So I will, the next slide is just showing you the kind of analyses that can be done. Again, thanks to Scott Miller. But what I want to leave you with is, well, you can see all the images that I've shown you up here, the things, but what I want to leave you with is sort of a session closing from a colleague who is Zimbabwean, based currently at London School of Hygiene, Tropical Medicine, physically in Canada, but launching the countdown, Lancet Countdown for Africa. This is Dr. Tafadzwa Mabaudi, who I believe is online and will close the session for us. Tafadzwa? Okay. This is always the scariest part of these sessions, but the IT has gone relatively smoothly, so for that I thank our IT friends.
Maybe you can call for him again to unmute, maybe? Unmute his mic. Could you please do that?
Tafadzwa, could you please unmute yourself so we can hear your pretty voice? This is Kajambo, who you have pulled up right now. Aha! Dr. Tafadzwa Mabaudi, hi. Do you hear us?
Good, thanks.
Oh, great.
Oh, perfect. Okay, afternoon, colleagues. It's been an absolute pleasure joining you remotely and listening into the talk. My name is Tafadzwa Mabaudi. I'm a professor of climate change, food systems and health with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and director of the Lancet Countdown in Africa Regional Center, as well as leading the newly established United Nations University Global Impact Hub on Reach Africa, based here in Africa. So I'll just summarize. I think from the first speaker, he really highlighted the importance of the Y scales, the simplicity that they bring in terms of being able to address data scarcity in Africa, providing a simple set of indicators or points through which we can collect robust, scalable, and context-specific data, really addressing issues of water insecurity and food insecurity in Africa. The potential for using the Y scales is quite limitless, as we heard from the different case studies, and especially the gender dimension of water and food insecurity, which they are so capable of capturing, as well as being very context-specific, providing rich data sets for local areas and data scarce regions. I'm really excited to hear that 30 countries in Africa are going to be taking up the Y scales. The example from Malawi is very inspiring in how they've incorporated it into the MVAC annual surveys. I think this will be very important to informing policy in Malawi. I'll be in Malawi this coming week, working with the government there to see how do we start using this information to inform policies and guidelines and really move towards climate resilient water and food systems. Going forward, what one would like to see or one would challenge others is to see how do we scale the Y scales much further. How do we incorporate them into curriculum development? I would be interested to work with you, Sarah, and team through the Lancet Countdown and through the UNU Hub on Reach Africa to see if we can develop some accredited courses or that can be offered to officials across African governments to be able to incorporate these skills into national surveys and data analysis so that we can start developing a huge body of robust and scalable data. So congratulations, Sarah and team, and I'm really looking forward to the next steps and the launch as well that will be happening in Australia later in September. Thanks.
All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it all. And if you're not converted yet, I don't know what will convert you, but I can tell you that for us in Africa, we decided to use data and science. And to our West colleagues, we welcome you also, because you taught us at one point that you're using data and science. So more than that, I would say thank you so much, asanteni sana in Swahili, for joining us, and looking forward to connecting with you. Bye-bye.